Falconry is something more than a sport, it's an art. It is not easy to train these brilliant and temperamental characters to fly as free as the wind and then come back to the trainer. It is even more difficult to get them to the point of taking so tough a quarry as grouse. Later you will see hawks actually striking grouse in mid-air. If you should happen to think this killing is cruel, reflect that the falcon kills her prey instantly. It is a good deal less cruel than the nightly activities of almost anybody's cat. Nowadays, falconry is practiced in Britain by no more than a handful of dedicated men. It was different in the days of old, when it was the most favoured of all the field sports, the favourite sport of kings. No one knows when it first started. We only know it was a long, long time ago. Some say it originated in China 4,000 years ago. A bas-relief some 3,000 years old, found in the ruins of Khorsabad in Persia, shows a hunter with hawk on fist. In Britain, the earliest record is in the reign of King Ethelbert, 860 AD, over 1,000 years ago. Edward III made it law that any man who stole a hawk would be hanged. During his reign, someone stole one of the Bishop of Ely's hawks from her perch in the cloisters of Bermondsey. The bishop immediately excommunicated the thief. Henry VIII went even further than Edward III. He made it a hanging matter if any man did not return any lost hawk to the royal mews. He intended that all lost hawks should become royal perquisites. James I was a falconer from early youth. He passed an act forbidding the use of guns to kill game, making an exception for those who kept hawks. They were allowed to shoot hail shot in hand guns or birding pieces at crow, chough, pie, ringdove, jay, or smaller birds for hawk's meat only. But with the invention of the shotgun, hawking declined. George II still maintained the royal mews, and the Duke of St. Albans, created hereditary Grand Falconer by Charles II, still received a salary of £1,372 a year. The present Duke still holds the office, although his stipend was bought out by Parliament during the 19th century. The tide did not begin to turn until Colonel Thornton started the first of the modern hawking clubs in 1770. And here are the 20th century hunting falcons. Even today, I shall have to use the falconer's language that has survived almost unchanged from the Middle Ages. This is Ready, an intermewed, passage, peregrine falcon. Falcon means she is a female. In specific terms, the male is a tiercel. Passage, that she was trapped as a wild bird in her first year. Intermewed, that she has been through a molt in captivity. She was taken in North Africa and probably raised in northern Scandinavia. The falconer's gear has also remained unchanged. Each falcon has her bells, jesses, soft leather straps round both legs, swivel, and leash. Eyes like a hawk is not a foolish simile. A hawk can see a great deal further than a good man with a good pair of binoculars. The field of vision lies directly ahead, and the eyes react to movement and focus on it. This applies to all predators, including man, the most destructive of all the predators. We are concerned only with the long-winged falcons that only take their quarry in the air. This hawk is using her wings, properly called sails, to balance herself in a gale. The leading edge is just like that of a jet airliner. The tail, or train, can be furled right in or fanned out and used as an air brake. Is this the origin of the swing wing idea and the air brake? Their feet are very strong. To take quarry at high speed, they have to be. They strike their prey with a raking blow. This is the hind toe that does the damage. The toes are properly called petty singles and the claws pounces. All longwings have a tooth in the beak. They kill their victims instantly by severing the neck. In the wild, they cannot risk a struggle, which could mean broken feathers, loss of speed, and thus starvation. The red hawk on the right is a first-year bird in juvenile plumage. The blue hawk is in mature plumage after its molt. The breast feathers, called the male, of the young bird are quite heavily streaked. The mature bird much lighter and barred. This tiercel in mature plumage has a patch of unmelted red on his wing covers. Each hawk is an individual with its own character and temperament, likes and dislikes. Gelad is an intermewed, haggard peregrine falcon. Haggard means she was trapped as a mature bird. Having reached maturity, killing for herself in the wild, she is very deadly indeed. Her name, Gelad, means the executioner in Arabic. Nasim is an intermewed, haggard peregrine tiercel. He comes from Pakistan. The tiercel is the male and is usually only 2/3 the size of the female. One normally uses only falcons to take grouse. Few tiercels have the power for so tough a quarry, but Nasim is a glorious exception. This is Old Bitch, an intermewed Ias peregrine falcon. Ias means that she was taken from the nest and not while caught. She is famous because in one season she took the greatest number of grouse ever recorded to one falcon's foot. She always keeps herself in fighting form. It grieves me to have to say that after 9 flying seasons, Old Bitch was lost. Arnak is the baby of the party. She was in the nest in Arctic Canada just 5 weeks ago. She is an Ias gerfalcon, and her name in Eskimo means quite simply woman. The gerfalcon is the mightiest of all the longwings, very nearly twice as big as a peregrine. This is her first lesson. Until now, she has never flown. She has to learn to fly and fly to the fist. She has therefore been kept rather sharp set, that is, a little hungry, and she is rewarded at each landing. Next day, she is flying on the creance, a long cord attached to the jesses. She has learned in 2 short exercises to make a clean landing, even in a difficult wind. Then she gets tied up in the creance and hops around with the rather reptilian gait of one of the big hawks on the ground. So she gets a short jump to the fist to restore her nerve, and that's the second day's lesson finished. Each hawking day starts in the mews. Ours are rough and ready, but they give shelter from rain or too much sun. The falconers are up early each morning to take their hawks to the weathering lawn. Each hawk has its own block, to which it is secured with the traditional falconer's knot. Though apparently complicated, it can with practice be done up and undone with one hand. They are always unhooded for weathering. Hooding looks fairly easy, but to do it properly takes practice. Once the falconer has the knack, hawks quickly learn to accept the hood. There are many different kinds of hoods. The Anglo-Indian in 3 variations. The Arabian, Syrio-Dutch, and Dutch proper, decorated in presentation style, and this with heron's plumes. But back to the business of weathering. When a hawk is unhooded, her eyes adjust instantly to bright sunlight, and she looks at everything about her. Our neck looks at everything that moves, and probably at most things that don't. Now every feather's fluffed out. She's going to rouse. This is the rouse, and it's always followed by a warble or wing stretch. Another rouse, and again she warbles. Something flies overhead. Meanwhile, Reddy, the seasoned old peregrine, is doing a thorough job of preening. Then she mantles, stretching wings and tail sideways, and follows it with a warble. But something else is needed for well-kept plumage, a bath. It is said that wild peregrines never drink, but ours often drink their bath water. A hawk that drank a lot was said to bowse, and this is probably the origin of the word booze, or boozer. Carmita is an elderly lady, and baths rather sedately, but Narwhal has a different approach. He is a tiercel in his red first-year plumage, and he gets down to it with all the vigor of youth. There's another important item in the weathering. Each hawk must cast if she is to fly her best on the hill. Arnak is bringing up quite a large pellet. She's got rid of it now. The casting is a soft ball of fur and feather put up in the crop. Hawks digest any bone they swallow, but not fur and feather. Other attentions have to be paid to them. A broken tail feather must be mended by imping. This is a running repair sort of job. A serious break has to be imped properly. Every falconer has his feather box. He selects from it a peregrine